Hello everybody, we are here to talk about this thing called email. So, first things first, why is it important? Well, take for example, you've got a user registering an account. Send them an email, confirm that they're a real person. They forgot their password, send them another email. Give them a new password that's randomly generated, who knows? Let's say you want to register them, but you don't really trust that the information they've entered is correct. If you give them an email with a special code in it that you've designed, they'll have to return that code in order to finish their registration. If your user needs, for whatever reason, a text message, or if you want to automate text messages, for yourself, you can make a program that actually sends an email to a specific address, which will then send a text message for you. It's a really cool feature that I found out about whenever I was I don't know, not very old, and I couldn't send text messages because back then they weren't free. So anyway, sending emails is really handy, and you can do this by setting up a Gmail account as your from email, and then it's not too hard to set up. Gmail's free, so let's get into the how. You want to start by setting up a simple scene just to test this out, get the hang of it. And then once you know how things work, then go ahead and integrate it in whatever way you can think of. So I've got an email button. It's literally just a button that's going to send my email for me. I've got my recipient input field where I can type in a recipient's email address. And then I've got my body input field where I can, send the body of the email. I have put on the button two scripts. If you saw my last video, I talked about Android Toast. And so I pretty much just left the same thing there, and I renamed the button. But I also added an email factory script, which that one is new. So it's got two public fields here for the body input field and for the recipient input field. And then we'll get into the scripting right over here. So this is meant to be done on a cell phone, but you could just as well use the same code on PC or on your server or something like that. In fact, I even recommend all the email code to be on a server, but I'm just going to show you this example on the phone just in case you wanted to try it out without setting up your server. And I'll tell you why I recommend it to be on the server. So let's open up our script. We got our email factory here. It's a grand total of not too many lines. So you'll notice one thing right here at the top. There's a ton of using statements. And that's okay because it works, and that's what's important. We're using Unity Engine and UnityEngine.UI. You don't need to add this line if you're not using the input fields. We're using system.net, system.net.mail, system.net.security, system.security.cryptography.x509 certificates, and then once you've included all of those lines, you are ready to go. Okay, so we got our email factory class. We've created our two public input fields that we talked about earlier, and let's get into the how do we send an email. So there are some basic parts that you need to define for the email, and then after that you can pretty much just send it. So this is about it. Up until line 36, that's the actual sending, and then I'll explain how SendText is different. So we need to create a mail message. I'm going to call that mail. Real simple line. And then we also need an SMTP client. This is how we're going to be sending our email. And that particular client, if we're using a Gmail address, is smtp.gmail.com. Don't change this string unless you know what you're doing and you're setting it up for a different SMTP server. Go ahead and give it a timeout value and then a delivery method, in this case network, and set default credentials to false if you're using Gmail, and set the port to 587. Again, the port, you can find that based on your SMTP server. You want to set your mail.from value. So in this case, I'm choosing my email address. This is my Gmail email address. And then you also want to set the mail.to value. So this is just who are you sending the message to. So in this case, I'm using recipient email.text because that's how an input field works. you can get the text property to check whatever they've typed in. For the subject, you can set that as well. So it's just mail.subject equals, and then you give it a string. These are all just like real simple things to set. So for the from and the to, you'll do a new mail address. But for subject and for body, you want to do a string. So for the body, I'm using bodyMessage.text, which again, that came from the input field. Now you need to add your credentials in order to send the email through Gmail. So what that really means is your login information. How are you going to log into your Gmail account? Now I have, for the purpose of this video, changed my credentials in the code, but I'll point out where those changes are. So right here, I put my password goes here. That's not my actual password. Just letting you know. That is where you would put your actual password. Now on the other hand, this part right here, yeah, that's my email. That's what I'm going to be using to send the email. If for whatever reason you want this mail address to be different, if you want to say like from, I don't know, African rich prince who's going to send you $5 million, go ahead. But you don't need to be dishonest. Make sure that you're using an actual from address that makes sense. Okay, so then we get on to the next part of this. You want to write this line over here. So service point manager.server certificate validation callback equals delegate object s. This is a long line, but it's basically going to go through the processes, and if there's an error, it's not going to go any further. Next, think of it like signing you in. If there's an error, it's not going to do the rest of it. Okay, so for delivery notification options, you can also set this value. Let's go ahead and go through the list real quick. We could do like on failure, or we could do on success, or we could do none, never, or delay. I would do a on failure, just because that way if like you deliver a message and it doesn't go through, it'll give you a failure message to let you know that you didn't send your message correctly. Why would it not go through? Well, imagine if you send an email and then you're sending it to an address that doesn't exist. That would be a problem. So that's why you'd want to have these delivery notification on failure. And SmtpServer.Send, that will actually send the mail through your SMTP server that we've defined. Okay, so real simple stuff. I'm kidding, but when you get past the complexity, when you write things down and you break it down part by part and you like figure out what each one thing does, it really isn't that hard to understand, and this is something that's 100% reusable. Just remember that you do need to change your email address and your password so that it's your email and your password. All right, next up we have how to send a text. So very similar to before, we're going to be sending an email. So we create a mail message, we define our SMTP server, set use default credentials of false. We're going to go ahead and use our from address. Now when it comes to the to address, we're going to have to pick one of these. If you send it to all of them, yeah, it's going to work, but we really only want to send it to the correct one. So you have to have some way of figuring out what their carrier is. You could have them just like press a button to choose their carrier. I don't know. But if you know who their carrier is before you send a text message from your program, that would be nice. If you're trying to create some kind of automated text message sending program so that you could send your friends texts on their birthdays, I don't know. Maybe you wanted to do that. Then you can just figure out what your friends' carriers are. I don't know, but you have to know the carrier to send them the text properly. If you send it to everybody, you're going to get like 8 delivery failed messages in your email inbox. So here's just an example. You want to give it a subject and a body just like before. And then again, you have to log in. And like I said, this is not my password. This is just something to fill in for the video. And everything else is the same. So that's it. Time to test it out. All right. Okay. So we go into Unity, and then we're going to go File, and then we're going to go Build and Run. Now, I have already built this onto my phone, so I'm just going to show you what it looks like from the phone. So I'm in the app now, and let me open up this view so we can see how everything works. Now, I want to show you the email address that I'm going to use and the email address I'm going to send it to. So right now I'll hit refresh. I'm looking at my sent folder, and this is my Gmail account. Okay, great, nothing cool. And then here's my Yahoo account. Ignore the spam, tons of spam, whatever. All right, so this was an email I used as a test a little while ago. We're going to send another one right now. So we'll go ahead and we're not going to click compose because we're going to send it through the app. So we'll go right over here, and because I want to do everything where you guys can see it, I'm going to go ahead and use my keyboard. So I want to type my recipient email address. So I'm going to use my email address. Now I want to type the body of the email. This message was sent during the video as a C# email test. Cool. And then we're going to go ahead and click the send email button. Now it's going to do me two things. It's going to send me an Android toast, and it's going to send the email through my Gmail account. Hopefully everything worked. There we go. Email sent successfully. All right. So now on my Gmail account, I'm going to go ahead and refresh the page and check my sent folder. We should now have an additional email being sent if everything has worked properly. Oh, it did not send. Why is it not sending? Oh, let's check. Check. Okay. This could just be my paranoia, but yeah, so it did send. I don't know why it wasn't showing me that earlier. Test email through C# app. This message was sent during the video as a C# email test. So we got the email. It's sent from the correct address. On Gmail, it looks like my sent mail wasn't updating for whatever reason, but oh, you know what? It's because I tested it earlier and it put it as part of a thread. So it did send it. It just wasn't telling me that it sent it. Okay, so that's the idea. You send your emails, and then it's relatively quick. A couple of things you'll have to do before this works, because I know if you try it right now, things are going to break. So in Gmail, there are a couple of settings that you want to look at. And because I know I have a bunch of Google accounts, and like almost everything is a Google account, you probably have a bunch of Google accounts. Pay attention to which account is logged in. This is not the right account. So I want to go to my account that I'm using to send the email. And you want to search up less secure app access for your account, and make sure that less secure app access is turned on. If you don't have that turned on, it's going to block your emails that you're trying to send through your less secure app. So just turn this on for your account, and that will let you send emails through your personal apps. Okay, once you've done that, then put in your email address, put in your password in the script, and you can start sending. I recommend do email messages through a server. And the reason is you don't want to have, like, if somebody's really good at decoding message, like, how would I describe this? If they take your Unity file, for example, and could somehow figure out the source code that you used, you wouldn't want them to see your username and password there. So a way of protecting yourself is instead of seeing your username and password, send a message to your server and have your server handle the email creation. Let your server create the email for you. That way your email username and password can be on the server side where they don't have access to that and they can't look at that code because it's not on their device. So I do recommend using a server to send emails, but hey, if it's just personal use and it's on your own phone and you're not like shipping a product, then feel free to put in your username and password because it's gonna work. So that's about it. Cool stuff. You can send an email. You can also send a text, like I said. I didn't show you an example of it, but it does work. All you need to do is pass in the phone number as a string, and then that should be followed by the correct identifier for their carrier. So these are all the addresses for each of the carriers, and it's going to be in the sample script, which you guys can find in the description. If they have, for example, AT&T, use that one. Verizon, Sprint or Metro PCS, T-Mobile, Virgin Mobile, Nextel, Boost Mobile, Alltel, and EE. So if they have any of those carriers, then that's the email address you'd use. If there's anything that I forgot, then you just have to look up what email to text message you should use, and they're usually just preceded by the phone number and then and this email address. So that's it. Thanks for watching the video. Good luck with your apps, and check out what's coming next. I don't know off the top of my head, but it's going to be something cool.